Welcome to this eLearnSecurity video training lesson on meterpreter. Meterpreter, short form of meterpreter, is a payload contained in the Metasploit framework that provides advanced features to pen testers after they successfully exploit a machine. As we've already seen in the Metasploit video, meterpreter is an interactive shell that allows us to interact with the exploited machine. In this video, we're going to use the power of meterpreter and see the most used commands that we can run once we gain access on the victim machine. We will see how to read or download files, retrieve Windows password hashes, get information about installed applications, and much more. To start using meterpreter, we need an exploited machine. So let's suppose we already have one and that we already installed a backdoor on it. What we need to do is to run the backdoor handler on our local machine and establish the connection with the victim. We have already configured the handler module, so we will just need to run it by typing exploit. As we can see, the backdoor is working, and we now have a meterpreter session. One of the first things to know about meterpreter sessions is that we can put them in the background. This allows us to continue using the Metasploit framework and its functionalities without losing the session on the remote machine. To do this, simply type background and hit enter. As we can see, Metasploit tells us that the session with ID 1 is now in the background. We can keep using Metasploit as usual, but of course we may also want to interact with the session once again. To do this, we can type sessions -i1, where 1 is the ID of the session we want to interact with. As we can see, we are now once again into meterpreter. Let's now see some very useful commands to gather information about the exploited machine, but also our privileges on the machine itself. Remember that you can get a list of available commands by typing help or question mark, and then hit enter. As we can see here, the list of commands is huge. There are many categories of commands depending on what task we want to perform. Let's explore some of these. The first category is named Core Commands, and it allows us to interact with the current session. For example, we can see the background command just used. We can run scripts, exit and kill the session, and much more. For now, we are not very interested in these commands since we want to explore commands to gather information from the exploited machine. If we scroll down a bit, we can see another section named stdapi. These are basically file system commands that allow us to browse and navigate the target machine. Here indeed, we can see commands for reading files, navigate the machine, download, list, upload or edit files, and much more. These are basically commands that we would run for a command shell. We will inspect them in a few minutes. The next section of commands is called networking commands. These allow us to get information about the network configuration of the remote machine, such as displaying the ARP cache, the interfaces, but also add port forwarding rules or checking the routes. As we will see, these are very useful commands that will help us better understand the network the machine is attached to. The system command section is similar to the previous two, but here we can gather much more information about the exploited machine as well as execute commands or get a Windows command line shell. For example, we can see commands that can be used to gather the environment variables, the process ID we are attached to, the privileges of the current user, but we can also list all of the processes or simply shut down or reboot the machine. The following sections contain commands that allow us to run complex operations in a very easy way. Here, for example, we can see that we can start a keylogger. We can capture screenshots from the machine, record the webcam or the microphone, escalate privileges by exploiting one or more vulnerabilities, or even dump the password hashes from the SAM database. Right now, we have a brief overview of a few commands that we can run. Note that in addition to these, we can also use Metasploit modules and scripts to perform specific operations on the machine. Do not worry, we'll see these soon. Let's then start gathering some information from the exploited machine. One of the first commands we may want to run is sysinfo. This command will display information about the target host. Let's run it and see what we get. From the output, we can see the computer name in the first line, and then the operating system running on the machine, which seems to be a Windows 7 64-bit Service Pack 1. The last line tells us that the meterpreter session is running on a 32-bit process. We will see in a moment how to list all of the running processes on the machine and, of course, identify the process we are attached to. Let's continue our investigation by gathering a bit more information about the target. For example, let's run ifconfig and check what interfaces the machine has. As we can see, there are a lot of interfaces here. Some of these are physical interfaces, such as the interface 11. Here indeed, we can see the current IP address of the machine. Some others are instead virtual interfaces. For example, interfaces 16 and 18 are virtual interfaces created by OpenVPN. This is good information. Indeed, we now know that the machine may use a VPN to establish a connection on other networks. Let's try to get a list of processes running on the machine and identify the process we are attached to. First, let's list all of the processes by running the ps command. Here we are. We can see the process ID, its name, the architecture, the user that is running the process, and the path of the executable. Note that here, we do not see all of the information about the other processes, since we are running the session with user privileges, and so we cannot access system information. We will see soon how to get the highest privileges on the machine. Right now, we know a list of process, so we may want to now know the process ID we are attached to. To get this, we can just run getPID and hit enter. And here we are. This is our process ID. If we search for it in the previous list, we can see that the name of our process is bind_5555.exe. As we have seen in the help manual, there are many other commands we can run. Till now, we retrieved basic information about the remote system. Before getting more information about installed applications, stored credentials, and so on, let's see how we can browse the machine. meterpreter is a very powerful shell that allows us to run Linux commands, even if we are on a Windows machine. We have seen this by running the ps command just before. It simply interprets and converts the commands to run into Windows commands. For example, if we want to verify our working directory, we can use pwd. This command doesn't exist on Windows systems, but meterpreter still allows us to run it. Indeed, as we can see, the working directory is the following. Note that this is the same directory where our backdoor is stored. We can also run the ls command to list all of the files here. As we can see, we have a list of files and directories plus a bit more information such as the privileges, the size, type, and so on for each file or folder. We can browse the entire computer system by using the cd command. For example, if we want to go into the parent folder, we can simply run cd ... and hit enter. If we run pwd once again, we can see now that we are in the ELS folder. Let's now list all of the files in the folder. As we can see, this output is much more interesting than the previous one. From here, we can keep browsing the remote machine or start inspecting or downloading files and folders. For example, let's inspect the content of the file named important.txt. Since it is a txt file, we can use the cat command to print its content. So let's just type cat important.txt. As we can see, this is the content of the file. Sometimes we will not be able to read the content of a file with the cat command. Think about an image or an RAR file. What we can do is to download the file from the remote machine into our machine and then inspect it locally. For example, here we can see an image named netdiagram.png. Let's use the download command as follows. We just need to type download, followed by the file name or the full path of the file on the remote machine, and then the path on our local machine, where we want to store the file. As we can see, the file has been successfully downloaded. Indeed, if we go into our desktop, we can now see the file here, so we can open it and inspect its contents. So far, we have seen a few basic commands that allow us to gather information and browse the remote machine. What we want to try now is to get higher privileges on the machine. This is a very important step because with higher privileges, we will access much more information. Metasploit offers a command to automatically escalate privileges on Windows machines. It's called getSystem. Let's try to run it and see what happens. As we can see, it fails, but do not worry, it's supposed to. If you recall, we're dealing with a Windows 7 machine, and most probably the machine has the user account control enabled. This Windows security feature doesn't allow us to run the command because we lack some privileges on the machine. Let's verify this by running a module that will tell us if the UAC is enabled. The module is called win_privs, and we can run it with the following command. As we can see in the output, UAC is indeed enabled, and we are running the session with a user account that doesn't have admin privileges on the machine. In the last column, we can see the name of the current user, and right after, we can see a list of privileges on the current user. We can also check the current user by running the getUID command. Indeed, it is the same. What we can do to get system privileges on the remote machine is to bypass the UAC protection and then run the getSystem command again. So let's put the session in the background and search for any module related to UAC. Great! As we can see in the output, there is a module named Bypass UAC. Let's use it and see what options we have to configure. Once selected, let's run Show Options to check the module options. It seems we only need to set the ID of the session we want to use, meaning the active meterpreter session on the exploited machine. To get this ID, we can simply run the sessions command. So this is the ID. Let's now set the module option as follows. And then run the module by typing exploit. Great! It seems it's working. Here indeed we can see a message saying that the module can bypass the UAC on the machine, and after a few seconds, a new meterpreter session appears. In this new session, let's first verify the current user with the getUID command. Once again, we are using the ELS user. It seems that nothing has changed, but that's not true. Let's try to run the win_privs modules once again and see if we have the same results obtained before. From the output, we can see that this time the admin column is true. Moreover, as we can see in the list right below, we now have many more privileges on the machine. So let's now try to run the getSystem command once again and see if we are able to escalate privileges on the machine. Great! It works. From the output, it seems we are now system on the machine. Let's verify this by running getUID. And indeed, we are now authenticated as NT Authority System, which is the most privileged account in Windows. If you remember, we were not able to see all of the information from the PS command output. Let's now try to run the command once again with the current privileges and see what happens. Great! We are now able to access all of the information on the system. Note that if we check our PID, we can see that we are running on this specific process. As you can imagine, the process name is not very stealthy, and it is also suspicious. If the user checks the process lists, he may notice that something strange is happening on his machine. What we can do then is to use the migrate command in order to attach our session on a different process, in order to remain stealthy on the final user. So let's find a good candidate where we can migrate. First of all, we have to choose a process that has the same privileges we currently have. So let's filter the previous output by using the following command: PS-U system. This will display only the processes with system privileges. Let's then choose a process from these lists. For example, let's select one of the processes here and type the following command: migrate, followed by the process ID we want to migrate to. Great, it works. If we check our current process ID, we can see that we are now on the new process. The last command we want to show you in this video is #dump. This command only works if we have system privileges on the remote machine, and it allows us to retrieve the password hashes stored in the SAM file. So let's run it and see what happens. Awesome. We now have a list of users and their password hashes. We can now store them locally and use any cracking tools such as John the Ripper or OPHCrack to crack them. Till now, we have seen many meterpreter commands and modules that can be used to gather information from the remote machine or simply escalate privileges on it. It's worth knowing that these are just a few. Metasploit offers a huge amount of modules and commands. We suggest you practice and explore as many as you can during your tests. And this concludes our training video on meterpreter. Thanks very much for joining us.